So now next 2.41 topic is class limits. Which are class limits? CL. The class limits are defined as the number or values of a variable. The number of values of the variable which describe the classes. The number of values of the variable which describe the classes. The smaller number is the lower class limit and the larger number is called the upper class limit. So the number or the value of a variable, the number of the number of a variable, the value, the number of a variable which describe the classes. The number which describe the classes are called class limits. The smaller number is called lower limits and the larger number is called upper class limit. Class limit class limit should be well defined. Class limit should be well defined and there should be a no overlapping. Class limit should be well defined and there should be no overlapping. In other words, the limit should be inclusive. The values corresponding exactly to be lower limit or the upper limit be included in the class. The class limits are therefore selected in such a way that they have the same number of significant places as the recorded value. Suppose the data are recorded to be nearest integer. Then the approaching method for defining the class limit without overlapping, for example, may be 10, 14, 15, 19, 20, 40. The class limit may be defined as 10.0, 4.9 and 15.0, 9.9, 20.0 minus 24.9 etc. When the data are recorded to be nearest tenth of the integer, sometimes a class has either no lower class limit or no upper class limit. Such a class is called open end class. The open-end class, if possible, should be avoided as they are hindrance in performing a certain calculation. A class indicated as 10 to 15 will indicated between 15. It 10, x greater than equal to 10 and less than equal to 15. What are class boundaries? Class limits, class boundaries. So this is the class limit and that is class boundary. The class boundaries are the precise number which separate one class from other. The class boundaries are the precise numbers which separate one class from another. The section of these numbers remove the difficulty. The selection of these numbers remove the difficulty, if any, in knowing the class to which a particular value should be assigned. A class boundary is located midway between the upper limit of a class and the lower limit of the next higher class. E.g. 9.5 minus 14.5, 14.5 minus 19.5, 19.5 minus 24.5, 9.25 minus 14.95, 14.95 minus 19.95. So this is the class limit between these 14.95 and 19.95. The class boundary are thus always defined more precisely than the level of a measurement being used, so that the possibility of an observation falling exactly on the boundary is avoided. That is why the class boundary carry one more decimal place than the class limit or the observed value. The upper class boundary of a class coincide with the lower boundary of a next class. The upper class boundary of a class coincide with the lower boundary of a next class. Class mark. What is a class mark? A class mark, also called class midpoint. A class mark is also called a class midpoint. It is that number which divides each class into two parts. Class mark. A class mark, also called a class midpoint, is that number which divides each class into two parts. In practice, it is obtained by dividing either the sum of the lower and the upper limit of a class or the sum of the lower and the upper boundary of a class by 2 in a few cases. It does not hold particularly in modern precise of a age grouping. For purpose of a calculation, the frequency in a particular class is assumed to have the same value as a mark or midpoint. This assumption may introduce an error called the grouping error.